Hello, hello, hello. How's everyone doing? Another week, another episode. This is Stats Over Politics. As always, I'm your host, Sean Holko. I'm back. I was out sick for 2 weeks. Had to use 90 sick hours, so had to play the game. I am live from an undisclosed location. Nah, let's just say it. I'm live here in Sonora, California at my new office for the Union Democrat newspaper. Just got hired as a full-time sports reporter, and I started my first day today. And so I am 2 hours from Sacramento, and I am joined by Mr. Kaz Johnson of Kazzy Bear TV, and as always, Mr. Jaevon Toddy. Toddy, how are we doing this week?
Feeling good. I guess we have a new NBA insider on the show now. Now that Sean's got his new little job, but congratulations to my brother. We got our boy Kaz in the building. Just survived the massage therapist. How we feeling? Feeling great. Got Sirianni screaming at fans. You guys were 8.5 favorites in that game, and that made me nervous. I was like, whoa, and then it jumped to 10, right before kickoff started, and I was like, that's a little strange. But nevertheless, you got the victory. Feeling good. Second, I think now you're de facto second best team in the NFC East. Niners are in first. We came back and totally redeemed ourselves. We're back, baby. 500, the 500 Niners. We got a doozy coming up this week. Old Patty's coming to town, so.
Now we're good over here, man. It's okay. I'll say it's okay. We're obviously going to cover the Eagles later on. I'll definitely give you guys my very raw, honest thoughts. I'm sure you guys probably have seen some tweets here and there throughout that game, and I think it's known that a lot of us Eagles fans still are not happy. But we're here another week. Yeah, I'm surviving, bro.
Well, we're glad that you're surviving, and we're happy to have you join us. Go ahead, Jaevon.
I was going to say our boy Drew in the comments, he's been on a hot streak all weekend. I'd say from Friday to Saturday, he's been on a generational run. Just won a good chunk of change on the Bills. So I want to say congrats to my boy. And also my boy Key, who's somewhere in the chat or somewhere. I don't know if he's watching right now, but he just hit an insane parlay that him and his mother tailed. And the last leg was the Buffalo Bills. I don't know if he wants me to say how much it was, but it was a good chunk of change. But a lot of my friends around me are winning, and I am over here getting whooped. by Vegas.
And as Drew Johnson says in the YouTube comments, Buffalo, let's go. I need money. And shout out to Uncle Manny, who's always locked in with us, says Cowboys fan asking for friend. When is the draft? Glad you're feeling better, Sean. We appreciate you, Uncle Manny. And happy birthday to Jerry Jones via the Detroit Lions. So we're going to get to that later in our speedy Week 6 NFL recap. But as Drew was saying, Buffalo, let's go. Let's get right to it because the Buffalo Bills just won on Monday Night Football against the New York Jets in the Battle of New York, even though it was played in New Jersey. And the Bills beat the Jets 23-20. This is all after the Jets fired Coach Robert Saleh. We'll get to that in a moment. But Kaz, I'm going to kick things off with you. Just what were some of your observations from Monday Night Football tonight?
Well, it was really cool seeing Aaron Rodgers finally get a more honest connection with Garrett Wilson. Been waiting for that since the beginning of the season. I'm sure Garrett Wilson fantasy owners know exactly what I'm talking about. He looks good, man. Like I'm very critical on Aaron Rodgers. I mentioned Twitter earlier. I have made comments about Aaron Rodgers. I'm a firm believer that if you are truly a good quarterback, you should have no problem finding your number one guy. And it took Aaron Rodgers about 3.5 weeks to finally start to find Garrett Wilson. And tonight we saw what they're capable of. Aaron Rodgers he proved me wrong. I'm very critical on him, and he was threading the needle. Guys were drop. I mean, almost every incompletion was due to either a drop or a penalty. You know what I'm saying? Or the defense obviously doing, things that, should have resulted in a penalty, but they weren't called. But Aaron Rodgers looks good, really good. That game should have probably been, I would say, another 7 to 9 points going the Jets' way if they just had guys execute. And I really like seeing that. As for the Bills, I mean, no James Cook. Ray Davis came in, no problem. I actually picked up Ty Johnson off waivers to Ray Davis. That didn't work out for me. I should have got Ray. They were both sitting there, but I didn't. Who knew who was going to get the the workload? It was Ray. He looks really good. I mean, the Bills they're a good team, and the Jets are still a team that's trying to figure things out. I mean, the Jets keep coming. They're this. I want to say, if I'm not mistaken, their last 2 losses, it kind of came to. It were pretty close calls. If I'm not mistaken. This was another one. I mean, they needed these wins. The Jets could easily be 4-2 as much as they are. Not, and I think a big part of it, what I took from this game tonight was it's not Aaron Rodgers for sure. It's not. He's a part of the solution. You take him out of the equation, that Jets team is very bad. So I just noticed that Rodgers, he looked really good. I think the firing of Saleh, which I know we're going to talk about later on, I thought this was going to be a statement game. They had the opportunity. It was right there. I mean, a very close game and just couldn't capitalize in the end. I mean, there was laundry all over the field all game long. Just a all-around sloppy game by both teams, but the quarterback play was pretty good for the most part. So, good game. Just came down. It was a game of inches that when it came down to it, and Bills got the best of them. So.
They certainly did. And just to touch up on Aaron Rodgers' performance tonight, 23 of 35 for 296 yards, and he had 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. Aaron Rodgers, according to StatMuse, hasn't had a 300-yard game in over 1,000 days. Obviously, that has a lot to do with his injury being 370 days of it, basically. And then Garrett Wilson, as you touched on, Kaz, the connection is finally there. 8 receptions for 107 yards, 1 touchdown, as Garrett Wilson recorded back-to-back 100-yard games, going back to the game that was in England against the Vikings, in which the Jets were getting absolutely throttled, clawed all the way back just to lose. And that's ultimately what led to Robert Saleh's downfall. And Jaevon, you were saying in our group chat before we got started here tonight that Javon Kinlaw, former San Francisco 49er, I mean, when he's not feuding with Grant Cohn, apparently he is beefing with the referees after getting called for an offside penalty late in that game. But aside from Javon Kinlaw and all jokes aside, Jaevon, just what did you think of this Monday night performance as the Bills beat the Jets 23-20?
And also on that same drive, he had a roughing the passer penalty that put them, I think, it was 1st and goal after that. But nonetheless, I thought this game itself it was pretty sloppy, as Kaz mentioned. I think there was over 16 penalties were accepted in this game. And, there were a bunch of missed field goals. I get there was a bunch of wind, but, I mean, Zerline's missing chip shots. These are 31-yard field goals, and he's wishing them. And it's just like, okay. I think he had 2 missed field goals, so that's 6 points off the board. Bills won by 3. So, I mean, I thought the Jets definitely had a chance to end it or to win it at the end of the game. But obviously the interception by Taron Johnson, who was from Elk Road or went to Franklin High School in Elk Road. It was kind of match made. And I thought that there were just too many missed opportunities by the Jets. I thought a lot of fantasy owners were probably happy with Breece Hall in this game. And also Garrett Wilson, as Kaz mentioned earlier. They were finding a connection. Rodgers can still sling the ball. I think that's neither here nor there. I think most people that have watched in recent games, he kind of started the season off a little bit slow, but I think he's starting to get into the groove a little bit. And rightfully so. He's 40 years old and he's coming off an Achilles injury. So it might take him a while to warm up. But I still think Aaron Rodgers has that potential of being Aaron Rodgers. I just thought that there were way too many penalties for them to overcome in this game. And kind of somebody had to win this game. I saw another stat that Josh Allen, he hasn't thrown an interception at all this year. But he was like, oh, I've thrown an interception. They just haven't caught him yet. That's what Joe Buck said. He said it on the broadcast. And I was like, and I looked it up. I was like, damn, he really ain't thrown a pick yet? But I was like, that's Josh Allen's MO.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And he's Ray Davis, man. I thought that Ray Davis, 4th round pick, he's a rookie. He was one of the better running backs in the SEC last year. Like, for the last 2 years, he was like one of the best running backs in college football. And he went all the way in the 4th round, which is kind of insane to me. So I wasn't surprised to see that he was getting his shine because I saw him play at Kentucky. Gambled on a couple of Kentucky games. But I knew that he was capable of being what he is, what we saw. That James Cook was, obviously out with injuries. So Buffalo continues to kind of, Josh Allen has to kind of put his cape on. And if he has a solid running game, they'll be able to kind of make things happen. And going into this game, I was kind of on the fence about who to pick because Buffalo had a couple of injuries on defense. They were missing James Cook. You would have needed Josh Allen to have a solid game. But I thought Ray Davis was definitely the X factor in this game, allowing them to have a play-action game and Josh Allen being able to make plays with his feet as well. So, hats off to the Bills. I think it's going to come down to the wire with this division because it's not as good as I thought it would have been. I did pick the Jets to win this division, but I feel like they're going to definitely go back and forth. But this was a game that they had to have to win if they wanted to be upright in the division, with the Buffalo Bills being the number one seed in this division. So I think we'll probably only see one team out of this division get to the playoffs, and that's the division winner. And this is going to kind of come down. That could potentially bite the Jets in the butt later on down the line, because the Bills obviously have the head-to-head victory already. But they play them twice, so we'll see later in the season what these two teams look like. Now there's a bunch of off-the-field stuff going on with Robert Saleh obviously getting fired, and we'll get into that a little bit later in the show. But, the Bills look the less dysfunctional, or like they did it like they had a lot of penalties, but somebody had to win this game and the Bills got the job done. And that's kind of what it comes down to, wins and losses.
They certainly did get the job done. Greg Zuerlein, as was mentioned, clanking a couple field goals, or at least that last one was definitely a clanker. And so, the Jets, they just seem to keep falling short. And that was before we get to the Saleh news, which was basically broken by Adam Schefter of ESPN, like early morning Tuesday. So we were off last week, but we wouldn't have been able to talk about it last week because it happened on Tuesday morning. But before we get to that That is a crazy stat about Josh Allen. I haven't watched every single Bills game, so I just assumed that he has thrown an interception this year. And the reason why that's such a crazy stat, and like Jaevon, you are the gambler on this podcast, and Kaz, I know you dabble a little bit too, but that is like, that was such a like easy way to make money betting the over. If the over is at Josh Allen half an interception, always betting the over, that was like free money right there. And so much so that I remember vividly last season that the sports books took it off completely. Not just the sports books, but also all the like sleeper fantasy, like the fantasy apps and stuff like that. Like they all took it off. It was not available because it was such a game, and that was on a game-to-game basis. So now for them to be 6 games into the season and have him without an interception right now, that's pretty impressive. So props to Josh Allen, especially with the way that he was slandered this offseason. NFL players voted that he was the most overrated quarterback in the NFL, and it seems just like Michael Jordan in The Last Dance, he took that personally, and he remembered, and he's showing it. And so now, guys, let's get to what we've been alluding to, because on Tuesday morning, the New York Jets fired Robert Saleh after 3+ seasons with the team. Ironically, and Kaz, forgive us as Kaz drops off for a second. We'll be rejoin with him in a moment. But Jaevon, maybe Jaevon, he knew that we were about to hype up the Niners a little bit, because the Jets go from former 49ers defensive coordinator Robert Saleh to former 49ers linebacker Jeff Ulbrich as the interim head coach. And I'll give my thoughts on this in a moment. I'm sorry. I had some thoughts that I was going to share, but I want to hear what you guys got to say first, and then I'll put a bow on it at the end. But this was shocking to me. Yeah, the Jets are struggling, but was Robert Saleh the problem? Because the Jets have had arguably one of the best defenses in the NFL this year and for a couple of years. It's just they didn't have the offense to get it done. Whether or not you think they're a top 5 defense in the NFL, they are a top 10 defense. Or yeah, maybe they're not top 5, but they definitely are top 10. And so for Robert Saleh to kind of be the scapegoat didn't make sense to me. I want to get your guys' thoughts on this first, because you might end up reading my mind of exactly what I'm going to say. But Jaevon, I'm going to toss it to you first on this one. Just what was your reaction when the Jets fired Robert Saleh last week?
Definitely shocking. I get that, the first 5 games of the season didn't really go right for them. I think the Jets are now 2-4 currently. I think they were 2-3. So they were 2-3 after they lost in London to the Vikings, which kind of came down to the wire. And then this game also pretty much comes down to the wire. And, the Jets I believe they are a top 10 defense currently. And Robert Saleh is known for being a defensive mind. The offense, on the other hand, has definitely struggled throughout the past, now 6 weeks of the regular season. And you get rid of the guy who's it's not his fault that he's the head coach. I understand that, but he is more focused on the defensive side of the football, and his side of the ball was up to par. Absolutely. The offense, on the other hand, was not, and they were, struggling with the snap, the cadence, and there's all this going on, and Rodgers throwing picks. I think he threw 3 picks last week. The play calling on the offensive side of the ball was not up to par, and somebody had to go, and I guess that somebody was the head man. I thought it probably should have been Nathaniel Hackett that should have been fired. I think tonight we saw from Todd Downing some spark on the offensive side of the football. I thought the offense looked pretty like they were getting their guys involved. Like Garrett Wilson was lining up at multiple sides of the ball. He would line up in the slot on the outside. They're trying to get the ball every which way. Breece Hall was getting involved. You've seen him, lining up, getting a lot more touches. And I just thought that there was a little bit more creativity with the play calling on the offensive side of the ball. Aaron Rodgers, like Shaun mentioned earlier in the show, he threw for almost 300 yards, 296 to be exact. And he hasn't done that in over 1,000 days. So I think we'll see a little bit. This will maybe jumpstart the team a little bit more. as we see them next week. I don't know who they play on Sunday, to be exact. But I thought we saw some promise. There were a lot of miscues with penalties and missed field goals that may have prevented the Jets from winning this game. But I do think the Jets are kind of going to go in a this is a good step for them. I don't know if Ulbrich is going to be the guy moving forward in the long term, but for right now, I guess he'll do. I guess we could rule Bill Belichick out of the conversation because I saw him on the Manning cast. He was talking shit about the Jets, saying, "Yeah, the owner is ready, shoot, fire." So,
Kaz, what did you think about the Robert Saleh news? Because just to touch on Bill Belichick real quick, like we remember Bill Belichick way back when, before Jaevon and I were born. Kaz, I don't know how many years you got on us, but
A lot.
even then you were a kid. But even then, you were a kid at that point when Bill Belichick was briefly the Jets head coach before he became the Patriots head coach. And so anyways, just what was your reaction to the Robert Saleh news? And I apologize for framing it from the 49ers angle that we did, but with two 49ers fans on here, we got to do that. But anyways, what did you think about the Jets fired Robert Saleh 5 weeks into the year?
Yeah, it was definitely premature. I mean, if you look at it from the surface level, it's like, okay, they already had a great defense for multiple years. We've known that. They got, like Sauce Gardner. They went ahead and got that guy. They got the Williams brothers. Like, for you guys to go get Aaron Rodgers, he plays 3 seconds last season, tears his stuff. You go back to the old Jets, that has never had a really good offense ever. And now we're 5 games into the season. You fire head coach because Aaron Rodgers, and like I told you guys before, he has not passed the eye test for me until the last 2 weeks. So when I look at the Jets, I don't look at it and go, "Oh my God, this is a head coach problem." I go, "Dude, this team needs a kind of." I'm seeing Aaron Rodgers not connect with Garrett Wilson a couple. I mean, that's huge, man. Like it's just such a big deal. Like you can't win games if you don't get your number one involved. I mean, you guys are seeing it with Ayuk and Debo. Like when you guys lost Debo for a game or two, I think it was, and Ayuk got all the money and he's not performing. I mean, your guys' record shows, right? Obviously, no CMC, but you don't need to have all of your guys healthy for you guys to have an opportunity to win games because you have a great defense and you still have weapons everywhere. But if they're not producing, you're not winning games. So the Jets aren't producing when it comes to Garrett Wilson, and they're not winning games. I didn't look at that as a Robert Saleh issue at all. And as someone who's watched every Jets game so far, no, there's been a reason why I've been very critical on Aaron Rodgers. I'm like, dude, you're missing wide open guys. I go, you're not going to sit there and tell me Garrett Wilson isn't open. He's open. All right. And if he's not open every play, he's open about 65, 70% of the time. So therefore, if you're that guy who can get him you're this highly, praised quarterback, which rightfully so, we get it. He's a Hall of Famer, first ballot, Super Bowl champion. Cool. You're 40 years old. You have an Achilles injury. Your arm's fine. Okay. On top of that, you're no longer reliant on your legs to extend plays. So we got to kind of step back and stop giving Aaron Rodgers excuses, and that's what I did early on this season. But fast forward 5 weeks, you get rid of Robert Saleh for what? You guys show up, and Toddy said it best. The offense, it did look like they got a little more creative. I did like that. I'm not sure if that was a solid thing or if it was just it just clicked. It's not like the Bills have this crazy defense that's impregnable. You know what I mean? The Bills have lost games against really good opponents. They've been handled by really good opponents, and they've beaten really bad opponents. They're kind of like the Cowboys. I don't really think that the Jets, in comparison to like what the Bills had to offer tonight, in their offense, that's because Saleh was gone. So 110%, it was premature. I would have gave it to at least week 8. You start off. I'm not sure when their bye week is, but say you start off like 3-5. Maybe you're 2-6 or something like that. Then yes, of course, do what you got to do. But I mean, you're not. They were contenders when it came to that division, and firing Saleh might come back to haunt them. We don't know yet, but we saw how they performed tonight. They still put up just 20 points. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like Saleh being gone, all of a sudden this team turned around 110%. You know what I mean? So premature, very premature. I don't think he's a bad coach. The defense obviously rallied behind him. From what I've heard and what I've read, it seemed like he was a player coach. You got to take these articles with a grain of salt. They're going to say nice things about guys, and apparently he was very, very personable. I think someone mentioned either Garrett Wilson, I think it was Sauce Gardner had a really good relationship with them. Would reach out to them annually, last 2 years or whatever, and I guess really enjoyed him and gave him a lot of praise. So you hear stuff like that, and then a guy gets fired. It's like, come on, because let me tell you something. In Philadelphia, if that happens, that ain't happening with Sirianni. Okay, you're not going to hear about, oh, we really love this guy. The things that are being said about an actual legitimate bad coach who's winning somehow, some way. You can see the difference. I don't think that Robert Saleh is a bad coach at all. I don't think he's a great coach, but we don't really know. But I can tell you what, like I said, that defense has been real for a few years and it's been under his watch. So very premature. And the Jets still might have an opportunity to win this division if they can go on a streak. But as for right now, didn't see anything tonight that told me Robert Saleh was the reason why they couldn't do what they did tonight. So
I completely agree that it was premature, and
there are so many Sunday Night Football. Sorry, let me cut you off. That's their next game.
Who they got?
They got the Steelers on Sunday Night Football.
You gotta win.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. And the Jets are not getting out of the spotlight, and so the entire nation is either going to watch their downfall or they're going to watch their comeback. But when it comes to this Saleh move, it does not make sense to me from multiple angles, because you think about it just from the grand picture. It's like, okay, you finally got a quarterback for this guy who has an elite defense. The offense was the problem. You finally get a quarterback. As Kaz mentioned, 4 plays, basically 3 seconds into last season, that quarterback is no longer around. So they just had to punt on last season. They run it back this year. And you give him 5 games to get it done, and then they nearly knock off an undefeated team across the pond. They come back, and they nearly beat the Vikings, and that was the game. Like, I get the slow start wasn't what they wanted. International games are weird, and so, like, it just doesn't make sense to me from the Jets' perspective, because it's like they didn't even give him, like, a real shot at it with Aaron Rodgers. And what the biggest thing that doesn't make sense to me, and I just think Aaron Rodgers is lying directly to America, directly to the Pat McAfee audience, because last week, Aaron Rodgers didn't have his regular appearance on Tuesday. Why? Because he wasn't going to go on hours after Robert Saleh just got fired. So he appeared on Wednesday. In one of his quotes, he said, "I resent any of those accusations because they're patently false. It's interesting the amount of power people think I have, which I don't." And it just doesn't make sense to me, because he doubled down on it. And that's following the news that insiders were saying that Woody Johnson, the Jets owner, called Robert Saleh, he called Aaron Rodgers on Monday night just to say, "Hey, how you doing?" Whatever. It was definitely talking about Robert Saleh. Leading into that, there was the, oh my God, Robert Saleh tried to hug Aaron Rodgers after a play, and Rodgers kind of gave him the stiff arm. What's going on? New York media blew it out of proportion, because that's what they do. But for Aaron Rodgers to double down and say, "No, I had nothing to do with this. It's hilarious how much power people think I have." Meanwhile, Woody Johnson, the Jets owner, went on record saying, "I made the move because we have a Super Bowl team this year. We are in a win now situation." And so, with all due respect to Jeff Ulbrich, 49ers linebacker of the past, he's the solution? Like, if you're bringing in Mike Vrabel from Cleveland, okay, that's better. But for Jeff Ulbrich to take over as the head coach, this was completely completely an Aaron Rodgers decision, because there was another report from Pro Football Talk on NBC Sports. Before he was fired on Tuesday, Jets coach Robert Saleh held Mike Florio. So Jets coach Robert Saleh held a staff meeting during which he informed the team's coaches that Todd Downing would take over play calling duties for Nathaniel Hackett. Who is Nathaniel Hackett?
That was before he got fired?
That was before he got fired. On Tuesday morning, before Woody Johnson said, "You're done." And so they probably were already thinking about it. Then for Robert Saleh to say, "Nathaniel Hackett, Aaron Rodgers' best friend, please take a step back, and you're no longer going to call the plays." And I mean, Aaron Rodgers, man, like I've always been a fan of his because he grew up like an hour north of Toddy and I in Sacramento, went to Butte Community College before he went on to Cal, grew up a 49ers fan, should have picked him instead of Alex Smith. Nevertheless, I've always been a fan of Aaron Rodgers, but this situation, not even all the COVID vaccine, whatever, have whatever take you want on that. That didn't make me change my opinion of Aaron Rodgers. This is making me change my opinion of Aaron Rodgers because it's like you had a good coach in Robert Saleh. Like it was either Kaz or Jaevon. One of you said this earlier. Saleh was a good coach, wasn't great. Still had a lot to prove. And so thank you, Jaevon, Kaz, you said that. And so it just didn't make sense to me from numerous angles of like, okay, if you're going to let him go, Jeff Ulbrich is his replacement. And if they win tonight against the Bills, I guess you could say it worked in a 1 week sample size, but they didn't. The field goal kicker could not knock things down. That's Greg the Leg Zerline. And so I'm just so confused and dumbfounded by it. But hey, Jaevon, for us as 49ers fans, it works out to our advantage because guess who's going to be our new defensive coordinator starting in 2025? Robert Saleh is going to come back to the Bay. So welcome home, Bob. But yeah, just didn't make sense to me. If the Jets don't make the playoffs this year, then it was a total failure. I don't understand this. Like I'm almost lost for words, which doesn't happen much, but it just doesn't make sense to me. Like when it happened, it was kind of like, oh, okay, so they actually decided to do it. But then for Aaron Rodgers to double down and say I had nothing to do with it, that's cap. We don't have back.
Robert Saleh is the head coach tonight.
I don't know. Kaz, what do you think? Do you think that the Jets win tonight if Robert Saleh was coaching?
That's a good question.
I'll say yes.
Oh man, I don't know because I think that they cleaned up the penalty issue. I mean, a lot of people don't talk about when it comes to coaching. You have a well-disciplined team. Penalties are mitigated. I think that it was a sloppy game, like we know it was a sloppy game on both ends. I'm not really sure how penalized the Jets are on the season. Like, are they like a heavily penalized team or not? I don't want to give out any false information on that, but I think that he finds a way to secure this game. But again, there was opportunities that were just bonehead mistakes. Some of them were penalties, and some of them were, again, drop passes. I mean, even the interception that Aaron Rodgers threw, I mean, that was a phenomenal interception. Like, it wasn't like a bonehead, Dak Prescott type, whatever. Here you go, Yeah, I'm definitely throwing shade because holy shit. But
you have to.
It wasn't like that. It was like that dude played that ball very well, jumped right over Mike Williams, and the ball was a foot from the ground. It was a great interception. So there was just so many small little opportunities for the Jets to steal that game. I think a little bit of coaching, maybe like at halftime, talking about the penalties, cleaning them up a little bit, whatever, might have done it. But it's one of those things where I can't really say confidently. I would like to think that he could win that game, but I mean, again, 20-23, it wasn't like an impressive, just offensive, just dominant game from either team. You know what I mean? It's like what more does the defense need to do? I mean, do you need to hold them down to 13 points? To 16? I mean, I don't know. That's a good question. I can't answer that confidently. I can't.
Well, I'm going to side with Jaevon, and I'm going to say that, yes, they do win tonight. And the sole reason that I'm basing that off of is earlier we were kind of joking about Javon Kinlaw and all the penalties that he was racking up on that last drive. But, let's not forget that Javon Kinlaw was drafted in the first round by the 49ers in 2020 to replace DeForest Buckner. And that was in Robert Saleh's last year as the defensive coordinator for the 49ers. And correct, Jaevon, it was 2020 was his last year, right? Or was it 2019? I might be wrong on this. But
2019 season. 2020.
Okay, yeah. So I stand corrected that Saleh was already gone from the 49ers organization at that point. But my overall point that I was getting to is that the connection that Kinlaw had being a part of the 49ers organization, understanding the discipline and what it takes to be a San Francisco 49er, and then to go to the Jets. I just feel like Robert Saleh had a better prior connection with Jaevon Kinlaw than a guy like Jeff Ulbrich might. And Jeff Ulbrich is another defensive guy. And so I could be wrong. I mean, they showed Ulbrich talking to Kinlaw at the end of the game. But it's like, even a Jaevon Kinlaw aside, I feel like that was a game that the Jets would have got. Monday Night Football at home, division rival within the state of New York. It seems like, or at least this is all the hypothetical game, but you're right, Kaz, that it was a really good question by Jaevon. And it's the difference between being 2-4 and 3-3 and tied for the lead in your division. Now they're 2 games back, and maybe the Jets coast to the division crown. Maybe they don't. We'll see. And we will continue to talk about it here on Stats Over Politics, episode 116, as we continue to keep it moving, guys. Shaun Holko alongside Kaz Johnson and Jaevon Toddy. So let's circle back to Thursday night, because the San Francisco 49ers played in Seattle against the Seahawks, and they beat the Seahawks 36-24. Seahawks fans were riding high when they were 3-0. The 49ers were 1-2. And how that all quickly has changed. And so, Jaevon, as our resident 49ers fan on this podcast, what was your satisfaction level with this game?
We needed to win this game because it was kind of, at one point in time, it was going down the Niners are up double digits and they're going to give up another lead again. And that's to all of the division opponents. Against the loss against the Rams was the same way. The loss to the Cardinals is literally the exact same game. We played all 3 of these games the exact same way. We just happened to come out on top of the Seahawks game. The other 2, we ended up losing. And one of them was at home. I thought Brock played well. Deebo Samuel was making plays. George Kittle obviously had the 2 touchdowns. Was probably the best player in this game. Not named Fred Warner. I think Seattle has a really good team around. If you kind of look at their roster, they have a really good offense. They have DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. I think Jackson Smith and Jigba. His usage needs to go up a little bit more. And they just got Kenneth Walker back, who's spinning on people and making all these unreal plays with the ball. Just so happens that Geno Smith is their quarterback, and that's just not going to cut it. Yeah, I get the box score at the end. Oh, Geno threw for 300 yards, but they lose by double digits. So it really just doesn't make sense. So as Shaun is writing in the air for our audio-only listeners, I think people are starting to write back on Geno. McDonald, I don't really know too much about. Is their coach good or not? Because they're giving up a bunch of points on defense. But they do have some injuries on defense as well. They're missing their first-round draft pick in Murphy. I do like their corners, as Kaz has alluded to on many points on the show. Their corners are one of the better young corners in Witherspoon, and I'm blanking on the other corner's name.
Tariq Woolen.
Tariq Woolen. I think he was hurt in this game too. I don't think he played.
He got hurt. Yeah.
So Seattle has a lot of key pieces. I just think they need a quarterback. I think there's some solid quarterbacks coming out in the draft. You got Ewers. You got Nussmeier is a guy at LSU. Who just won the overtime game, is a guy that will probably start emerging. There's Cam Ward. There's obviously Shador Sanders obviously is one of those guys. Are they going to be in the mix for one of those guys? In the top 10? Maybe, maybe not. I feel like Seattle will be competitive enough to be pushing for a playoff spot, but won't be as bad to be a top 10 pick unless they trade up, as we've seen teams do in the past for a quarterback. So we'll kind of see what they are. I think it was kind of a facade when everybody, Seattle's starting 3-0. They're going to be a playoff team. And this, I was like, oh, let's calm down. Let's pump the brakes. Geno Smith is still the quarterback. There's nobody who's out there that can. They got a good team, but I just think Geno is going to come down to Geno. They need to win games, and I don't think you can count on Geno to win you those games. They're going to put you in playoff position.
Speaking of Geno, he now has the most games with at least 40 passing attempts this season, as he's done that 4 out of 6 games for the Seahawks. And from the 49ers angle of it, Deebo Samuel had 6 touches for 116 yards and 1 touchdown. That is the most 100-yard games on the team since he was drafted. George Kittle had 5 receptions for 58 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he has now scored multiple touchdowns on the road in 3 of the last 4 matchups. And for George Kittle, it's like, hey, welcome to the party. I'm glad to know that my screen just refreshed. My Wi-Fi connection isn't the strongest, so I apologize if I just buffered, but got the thumbs up from Kaz, so I guess I'm back. And Brock Purdy, he now has 3 games with multiple passing touchdowns against the Seahawks, which is his most such games against any team. But yeah, for the last 2-3 years, I've been drafting George Kittle as my fantasy tight end on multiple teams, and he was a huge disappointment. This year, I was like, all right, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to let my bias shine through. And of course, this is the year that he decides to go off. Does have a lot to do with the CMC injury and Deebo being out a couple games, but hey, man, regardless of my own selfish fantasy reasons, I'm just happy that one of the best tight ends in the NFL is looking like it again. And so the 49ers get the win 36-24 against the Seahawks, Kaz. And so from your unbiased perspective, as Jaevon starts to lean into the screen,
hold on, Kaz,
what did you?
That boy 1-4 coming back. Pearsall. Practice window just got activated. All I'm saying
Many
is,
men.
Wish death upon me. Hey man, all I'm saying is y'all better be on the lookout when you see 1-4 out there on Sunday. I'm just saying, he back. Pearsall back. Y'all got to see all these other receivers. You can see Neighbors out there. You can see Brian Thomas Jr. making plays. When you see 1-4 get out there, man, I'm just saying, league better watch out.
This whole time we have been debating, or Jaevon has been debating, that Malik Neighbors is a more talented rookie wide receiver than Marvin Harrison Jr. But what he never mentioned is that Ricky Pearsall is better than all of them. But all jokes aside, Kaz, the 49ers get the job done against the Seahawks. I don't know if there was ever a must-win Week 6 game before. I never really classified it as a must-win game because we've seen the 49ers get off to slow starts before. I mean, they made it to the Super Bowl the year that they started 3-5. And so, or they at least made it to the NFC Championship game. The 49ers have had so much success in recent years, Jaevon, when it comes to winning playoff games, not finishing the job, but they advance in the playoffs, that it's all just meshing together. But anyways, Kaz, to save me from rambling, what did you think about the 49ers beating the Seahawks 36-24?
Well, first off, made some really good money. Thank God for the 3 touchdowns that I selected to add to my parlay from Brock Purdy. Posting that out on my Twitter. I like to post my big wins. So yeah, I mean, first off, I want to start off talking about Geno Smith. I like Geno Smith. I don't know why people don't like him. I don't know what you guys are seeing and thinking.
He's not good.
You're mentioning that he's his problem. Like, you're talking about Shador and Ewers coming out the draft. Like, bro, like he's putting up numbers. Like, the defense got to stop somebody. You know what I mean?
No,
so I don't know.
The numbers
I like Geno. I like the way I like his competitive fire. I think that he kind of like had like little, he take this with a grain of salt. They're definitely not the same caliber, but kind of like tonight with Aaron Rodgers, like, dude, like the guys are open. They're not making the plays. I've seen that. I mean, you got DK making having drops, hitting right in the numbers, stuff like that. I mean, that stuff factors in when you're watching the game. So what I'll say about Geno is I think that Geno, he's gained the respect from me. I don't think he's a great quarterback, but I think he fits very well in Seattle. I mean, he put up 1 million yards against the Detroit Lions, which isn't saying much, but he still put up the numbers. To put into perspective, I don't think that even my guy, Jalen Hurts, puts up numbers like that against a team like Detroit or San Fran. I really don't. So, I mean, with that being my guy, my quarterback, who I am very critical on, seeing a guy like Geno Smith go out there and put up, 300-yard games like it's nothing. I mean, if you gotta look at like Justin Herbert, for instance, you know what I'm saying? Like a guy who puts up a bazillion yards a game before this season, when they turn to a run-first team, but like they're losing games, but he's putting up a lot of yards. At some point, you got to just take a little bit of the blame off the quarterback and put it elsewhere. And I think Geno right now is a guy where I'm like, I'm not blaming Geno for these losses, even with him throwing a couple picks here and there. I mean, he's just looking around like mouthing, what the are you guys doing? You know what I'm saying? Like if he's saying that, clearly he doesn't strike me as a quarterback that doesn't hold himself accountable. But I mean, you see guys like Aaron Rodgers do the same thing, where it's like they do the eye roll or whatever. It's like they know that something happened that was out of their control, which is what caused that play to not work. So watching Geno Smith this year, I've been pleased with how he's been. I think that Seattle has. I actually tweeted it. I said that Seattle has a really good offense. Like it's there. They just got to win games. And I mean, they start off 3-0, and it's not done yet. I mean, you guys still got to see them again. I mean, they're going to go ahead and probably. I'm not sure. I think they already played Arizona this year. I'm not sure. I think they did, and they won big time, if I'm not mistaken. But regardless, if they haven't, I think that they sweep Arizona. I think that they sweep LA. So like, I think they're going to be there when it's all said and done. And if I'm not mistaken, I did pick Seattle to be my 6th seed this season, to make the playoffs, the 6th seed. And I had Dallas at 7. But regardless, I like Geno. Now, as for the game, the Niners should have won that game, and it was a must-win game for the Niners. I mean, you guys are a good team. You're well coached. It doesn't matter how you start the season off, whether you start off 2-4 or you start off, 6-0. You're a good team. Everybody knows when it comes to the NFL that it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. And you guys, time and time again, finish the season well. Okay, so coming into that game, I think that even with the injuries, you guys are the better team. You guys have already proven you guys don't need CMC at running back. It's overkill. That's all it is. It's extra. It's almost equivalent to us getting rid of DeAndre Swift and getting Saquon. It's like, okay, that's nice, but we didn't need a Saquon Barkley. Well, we got him. You know what I mean? So the Niners should have won it. You guys did win the game, and I thought that the Seattle Seahawks fought well. But when it all came down to it, you got Brock Purdy, who when he's on, it's a hard team to beat because your guys' defense is gonna do what they do. So Geno had a little bit of trouble when it came to defense down the final stretch. I think he had, like I said, a couple picks, I believe it was. I know he had one for sure. But you can't. You're playing catch up against a team that has guys that can make plays. Jordan Mason went out in like the first quarter, I think it was. He was out the entire game. Then he came back to the sideline. He didn't really. I mean, they were kind of teasing him coming back, but it's like, why? Like, what? I mean, you can put anybody in that Shanahan offense, and it works out at running back. I mean, and we're also seeing now why running backs they're valued so low now, because you can plug in anybody who has fresh legs. And as long as they know how to run between the tackles and protect the ball, you're good. So the Niners did really well, just adjusting to losing Jordan Mason early on. Brock Purdy was damn near perfect for the most part. I mean, not literally, but you know what I mean? Like, he wasn't making any big mistakes. Big play from Deebo Samuel, put him over 100 yards.
Brock Purdy is a top 10 quarterback. Thank you,
what
sir.
was that?
Brock Purdy is a top 10 quarterback.
He is. I mean, I had him in my top 10. I think I'm at 9 when I did my preseason top 10. He's for sure. He's probably got the best pocket awareness. He's definitely top up there with pocket awareness. I mean, he gets the ball out in time. He doesn't get sacked a ton. He's good. He used his legs a lot this game too, which people don't talk about that a lot. The Niners were the better team, and the better team won. But I just don't want to discredit Geno Smith and Seahawks. I don't. I think that they're going to continue to put up, 27, plus point games, and they're going to have guys like DK who are going to be streaking, having 2 or 3 touchdowns in games. You mentioned Jackson Smith and Jigba. I mean, they're starting to get all these guys involved. They just got to close. That's it. They got to close. And I think a big part of it is that defense. So if you allow teams to score, 25, 20, 28, 30 plus points in games, it's hard to win. It comes down to who gets the ball last for the most part, and sometimes it doesn't work out. So I think the Seahawks will be fine. You guys don't get too comfortable. I'm just saying, as Niners fans, I know you guys are starting to see the light. I'm glad to see you guys smiling and having some fun with this. But Seattle's a team that I wouldn't take lightly. If they go on another 3 or 4 game win streak, and you guys don't, that division is going to be up for grabs. So just watch out. But good win by the Niners. It was a must win, and you guys got it done.
Yeah, and Jordan Mason, he suffered that left shoulder sprain at the beginning of the second quarter, tried to come back. He came back in the second half. Kyle Shanahan told the sideline reporter, he's good, he's back, came back for one play, and then he was out again. But like Kaz said, I mean, you plug in the rookie, Isaac Guerrero, in there, he's going to do fine. And so hopefully JP is all right. We're already missing the reigning, defending, undisputed. Yeah, we do need to sign a running back, just like we just signed a kicker. But the Niners are missing the reigning offensive player of the year. And so to miss an impact player like Jordan Mason, I mean, even for a 49ers team that has so many studs, they're going to miss him if he is missing. And so I'd rather have CMC and Mason dealing with injuries now because, I mean, as a 49ers fan, like Jaevon, in all honesty, like we're spoiled. We haven't gotten to see our team actually win it all. But for the most part, like we're spoiled. At this point, the regular season doesn't even matter to me that much anymore. Like I don't care. As long as they get in the playoffs, I don't really care what happens in the regular season. And it's just because like I'm just so numb because I've seen them win multiple playoff games and not even get the job done. And so Kaz, the one question I did want to ask you, and I don't have the notebook right in front of me because it got left in Sacramento, so I can't verify where you had the Seahawks finishing this season. But if Geno isn't the problem, and I don't necessarily think he's the problem, but I do think that they could find a better option eventually. Right now, in the middle of the season, no, they can't find a better option. Just like the Jets couldn't find a better option right here, right now for Robert Saleh. They still did it anyways. I don't think the Seahawks could find a better solution right now. Maybe in the offseason, maybe in the draft. But Seattle has lost 3 games in a row, Kaz, and I know that you're not locked in on Seattle football, but in your opinion, like who or what is the problem in Seattle? Because obviously something's not working. They've lost 3 in a row.
I'd have to look deeper at those losses. I mean, I have my notebook over there, and I'm not gonna like step off screen and go grab it, but I'd have to look deep. I know one of the losses was against Detroit. It looks like probably a top 2 team out of the NFC. So I'm like, in a Super Bowl contender for sure. Like you got Minnesota and Detroit out of the NFC right now. Those are 2 teams that, I mean, they're having a lot of fun winning football games, and they're doing it like forcefully. So you got one of those losses coming from them. Also, it was in Detroit. You got another loss coming from, obviously, you guys who, again, you were in the Super Bowl no less than 7 months ago. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I'm looking at it more like that. So yeah, it is 3 games they've lost. I can't remember what was the third loss. Do you remember the third loss? You guys?
No, not off the top of my head. But I mean, like you were saying though, 2 out of 3 of those losses are against the best teams in the NFC.
Yeah. I mean, like legitimately. So I'm like, yeah, Detroit, and then whoever else, doesn't matter. But regardless.
Yeah, the stinky one at home against the New York Giants.
Yeah, that was the one. That was the one. Which that happens. Okay, I'm just gonna call it what it is. It happens. In New York is low key like a little bit better than what people want to admit. They have. We'll talk. That doesn't matter. But regardless, what I'll say is their losses. I'm not looking at these losses like, oh, they're losing 10-38. You know, they're losing 14 and there's no touchdowns put on the board. You know, like 14, maybe it's like a defensive touchdown, no offensive touchdowns. Like, no, the offense is able to score. So that's when I see an offense that's able to score, I have to look at other areas and try to pick what I feel is the true reason why you're losing games. Now, I think it has a lot to do with coaching. I haven't dove super deep into Seattle football and really analyzed it. But what I'll say is if the offense is putting up numbers, Kenneth Walker, he had a couple games ago, 3 touchdown performance. You know what I'm saying? Like looking like the best running back in the league for a week. You got Geno Smith putting up multiple games over 300 yards. It's like, okay, I know other teams that are winning that aren't doing that on offense, but they're winning. I kind of look at it from that perspective. So I'm just not super critical on Geno Smith. Geno Smith is who he is, but I think that people will look at Geno Smith as a bad quarterback. I just don't. I think he's a solid quarterback. I think that it's also being proven too with all these young guys, or not young guys, but guys getting a second chance like Justin Fields and like Sam Darnold's. Like maybe every quarterback is a system quarterback. You got to be in the right system. I think that Geno's in the right system in Seattle. He just needs. It's not like he's not hitting these guys. The numbers are there. It's showing. So for me, it's not. It'd be different if he's putting up these numbers and he's averaging 2 picks a game. Then we can start talking about, okay, you're just Jameis Winston 2.0, right? That's not happening.
30 for 30.
Yeah, say that's not happening. Geno Smith is one of the top quarterbacks in the league yardage wise right now, and when in comparison to the others, a lot of quarterbacks have a good chunk of interceptions right now. So it's not like he's doing anything less than other quarterbacks that are good in the NFL right now. There's a couple, I guess, like we mentioned earlier, Josh Allen clearly doesn't have an interception, but you want to compare yards to Geno Smith? Because we can do that if you want. You see what I'm saying? So for me,
Yeah, he's slinging it.
Geno Smith he's balling for Geno Smith. I don't expect Geno Smith to do what Brock Purdy's doing or what Mahomes is capable of doing because he's not even having the best season either, or even like Dak Prescott, which before this game, I mean, he has a bazillion yards already too. You know what I'm saying? So we're holding Geno to this higher standard, and it's like, why? Geno Smith is just he's either going to be a bad quarterback or a solid quarterback, and I think that he's playing solid quarterback. He's playing solid football right now. So Geno Smith, in my eyes, isn't the problem. So I'd have to say if I had to place blame, coaching, and that's me throwing that out there very loosely. I think that maybe the decision making when it comes to the defense or like play calling or what have you when it matters the most might be putting Seattle too far to reach to win these games when the offense is producing. So that's all. I'm kind of riding with Geno because from what I'm seeing, I'm like, you're not playing bad. You're not playing the best in the league, but you're playing far from bad. And that's where I'm going to just start and stop right there.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And the Giants loss, that was ugly. That was unexpected for me as a 49ers fan. I definitely did not see that coming. I thought that Seattle would bounce back from that Lions game and absolutely destroy the Giants. But I mean, the Giants, they lost last night on Sunday Night Football. They could hardly score against the Bengals. And so, like you said, it was kind of just an anomaly, and like shit happens. Everyone has those weird games. I mean, the 49ers, they have two of their losses against division opponents. They easily could have had a third. And so, just weird shit happens throughout a 17 to 18 game regular season. And speaking of weird shit happening, Kaz, the Philadelphia Eagles barely snuck by the Cleveland Browns 20-16. I know that you and I talked a little bit off air yesterday when we were doing our test run. And by the way, for using your cell phone camera, it looks magnificent, especially compared to my laptop camera. It doesn't look good. But anyways, it's your Eagles. It's you and Kevin's Eagles. And so they barely sneak past the Browns 20-16. As Jaevon said, you guys survived the masseuse assassin or whatever. Anyways, Eagles beat the Browns 20-16. My biggest takeaway, as I said to you yesterday, because I didn't see much of the game, but the one thing I did see is CJ Gardner-Johnson trying to steal interceptions from the Rook. And so just what were your overall takeaways from the Eagles barely beating the Browns?
Yeah, I really don't have much to say about it. We don't look good. Coming off of a bye week against arguably, for sure, a top 3 team in the NFL right now. I mean, we're going against a team that is, if I'm not mistaken, like dead last in offense. If they're not, I know they're very close. They can't put up numbers for nothing. They can't. Deshaun Watson, I think he's like over 26 on third down conversions this season or something like that. There's a bunch of crazy stats when it comes to the offense. I mean, they're very bad. And for us to get A.J. Brown back and Devonta Smith back, obviously still have Saquon Barkley, who, 17 for like barely 40 yards rushing. And then Jalen Hurts, had a very Jalen Hurts-ish game. It's like there's no real spark from this Philadelphia Eagles team. And I'm a firm believer in the first 4 weeks of football are whack. They don't show us anything. After the first 4 weeks, then we kind of start to see teams really settle into their true identity. We're in week 6, and we're coming, and we're one of 4 teams that got the early bye, and to come out at home. And I've been to plenty of Eagles games in Philadelphia. It ain't no joke. It's a fun time. And you barely beat the Browns. Philadelphia Eagles Twitter is not happy. There's been people still calling for Nick Sirianni's job. You have a couple optimistic Eagles content creators saying things like, they're posting like clips of like, look at this elite ball placement by Jalen Hurts, and we're like, dude, who gives a shit? It was underthrown and we beat them by 5. Like, you got to be kidding me. Like, that's one hiccup away from losing this game. I also tweeted too, I think, that I saw we opened up at like 9.8 or 9 point favors. I think it was 9 point favors. I'm like, in what world? I quote tweet. I go, in what world are we favored to win by 9? What are they? What are the elite seeing that's telling them, or that's telling them to tell us the Eagles will beat the Browns by 9? Yeah, it's the Browns, but like we don't look good either, and we know we're sitting at 3-2 right now, and we're not confident as fans. So when it comes down to that game, like from what I saw, I was just like, the first quarter, I'm like, okay, I'll wait. Then the second quarter, I'm like, look at halftime, tie game, halftime. Third quarter, I'm like, wow, we're in the fourth quarter, and we're still tied. Like, or I think we were tied, or we were up by like maybe like, I can't remember because I'm gonna lie to you.
The game was there to be had.
Yes, I was getting hammered at that moment. Yes, because I couldn't take
I don't
it.
blame you. I don't blame you.
I was like, yo, this is a joke. I was at the bar, like just I took my jersey off. Me and my friend, we both were wearing Devonta Smith jerseys. I'm like, dude, we can't. I go, I don't care if we win this game. I go, I'm not representing this team. We took our jerseys off, fold them up, put them on the bar, and just kept drinking. You know, so it was just an embarrassing win. That's the best way I can put it. The Browns are a terrible team. The defense, I mean, looked okay, but it's not saying much because the Browns have one of the worst offenses in the league. You know what I'm saying? So you should look good. I would say the only positive takeaway I could take from that game is welcome back, A.J. Brown. You know, he found the end zone. Devonta Smith found the end zone. That was awesome, but it's like, what do you expect? You have 2 top 15 wide receivers. One's a top 5 wide receiver, most likely in some people's top 10, list. The A.J. Brown probably sitting around 5 to 7 on average, I would say, when it comes to people's top 10 receivers. And you got Devonta Smith, who on any given Sunday can give you 100 yards and maybe a set of touchdowns. What do you expect, man? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not a fan of having a super team because that doesn't tell me. I'd much rather win because of grit and hard work and execution versus winning based off of talent. I don't like that. We won because of talent. We won because we have guys who are bigger, faster, stronger. Not because we have actual better. It wasn't better play calling. We didn't scheme anything up. That was a game that we needed to come off the bye week and we needed to win by 2+ scores. And that's another thing that I tweeted too. I asked Eagle Nation, I said, hey, how much would you guys think the Eagles need to win by for you guys to be confident in this team? And I had somebody tweeted 700 points. I said I need at least 2 scores. Somebody said it should be like 30 to 7 or something like that, 30 to 10. I'm like, I can foresee it being like 30 to 17 or something like that. And even I was wrong. And that was me being generous. I was being generous and we still squeaked by. It just wasn't a good win. It was an embarrassing win. And as of right now, the Philadelphia Eagles look like the 3rd best team in this division, even with the Cowboys getting pulverized. I think that we look like the 3rd best team in this division. I'm not even joking. Washington definitely looks way better than us. Dallas has had our number, and until I see us best Dallas, I'm going to continue to give them the benefit of the doubt. They will continue to have our number until I see us put teams away. Another week, we're at Philadelphia, squeaks by with the win. It's just I'm not comfortable.
I totally understand why, but ultimately, and here I am playing the devil's advocate for all of Philadelphia, which is something I never thought I would do. But a win is a win is a win, and so it's like it sucks, you hate it, but at least they won. That's the biggest thing. And like, imagine you described all the range of emotions that you went through, but imagine how you would feel if they actually lost to this version of Deshaun Watson and the Browns. I mean, I don't know if we would see you tonight. I mean, you likely would have still come through.
I would have been here,
but you might have been drunk on the podcast because it would have just continued on. But one other thing I wanted to ask you, just kind of in regard to this game, is I saw Nick Sirianni going after the Philadelphia crowd, and whatever was said to him, I'm sure it's Philly. And this isn't just the case with Philly. It's everywhere. And I need to make that clear because one of my good friends, Matthew Pearson, he's a diehard Philly fan, and he absolutely hates the fact that Philly always gets bagged on as the place that, like, oh, they have the worst fans or whatever. The fans that are always bashing people. Happens everywhere, but it always gets magnified in Philly. And so what I wanted to ask is just, like, what's going on with Nick Sirianni? Because he obviously seems to have a little bit of fragility to where he can't take the chirping anymore. And I think I saw that he apologized for going after the fan and arguing back and forth with them about it. But I mean, Robert Saleh got fired, and I would have put Nick Sirianni higher on the cut list than Robert Saleh. And so, would you like to see Sirianni stick around? Like, I mean, this is all me asking the question just because of what happened with him in the crowd. But what do you think? Are you looking at him as a guy who's on his way out, or what's your take on that?
I'll be 100% honest. Emotionally, like whenever I watch Eagles games, I'm definitely one of the Twitter guys who screams fire Sirianni. I post it a lot, and I know I'm saying it just from an emotional state. But what I'll say is this: I'm indifferent. If we fire him, I'm not gonna be mad because it can't get much worse than this. Like I said, we're able to beat teams based off of just talent alone. Not even. We don't need a coach. You know what I mean? Like this sounds crazy. We don't. We're outmanning teams when we win, and when we're losing, it's because we're poorly coached. So at the end of the day, do I want him gone? I don't really care at this point. If I'll give it, another 3 or 4 games. If we don't escape with, I'll say that we already got one under our belt, which is Cleveland. Within the next 3 or 4 games, if we don't have a positive record, I think it's time for him to go. I think that what the Jets did was a bold move, and now that kind of put the league on notice that, hey, if there's organizations willing to fire guys early, we might need to do the same thing. It just depends on who's available, but I don't think it gets much worse than Sirianni. Honestly, I mean, he has a winning record, but that's not all telling. Like I just said, we're winning games based off of pure talent. You can't stop AJ Brown. Jalen Hurts is a dog when he's in his bag. You got Saquon, who have arguably the best offensive line in football, and you got Devontae Smith in a top 5 tight end. It's like, I hope to God you freaking win some games. You know what I mean? So I don't really care at this moment. I just want to see the Philadelphia Eagles put up a couple games over 30 points with this.
Who y'all got next week?
We at New York, I think.
Giants?
I think it's the Giants. I think. Don't quote me on that.
You better win that.
Yeah, we have an easy schedule. It's like,
it is the Giants. You guys are 3.5 point favorites.
Yeah, it's the Giants. So, and then after that, I think we have another game where it's kind of like a
neighbors coming back.
Yeah. But what I'll say, like I said,
Saquon got to put up like 3 touchdowns. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Saquon got to put up like 3 touchdowns in that revenge game.
Yeah, it's the emotions with Nick Sirianni is everywhere. It's hard when you go to school with this coach, and that was just 2 years ago. Then last year we have the plummet after starting off like 10-1 or wherever the hell we were. I can't remember, but regardless. And then now this season we're starting off weird again. It's like there's no growth. It's just weird. So it would make more sense for Nick Sirianni to go before Saleh, because Saleh and that Jets team, they're trying to figure things out. We already have a Super Bowl caliber team. We made all the moves. What more do we need? What more do we got to do? What more do we need to do? I mean, let me ask you guys this as Niners fans. Do you guys think that if you took the entire Eagles roster and put them in San Fran with Shanahan, would you guys be happy with this team? Do you think that y'all ball out with AJ Brown and Devonta Smith and Saquon Barkley, that offensive line, and Jalen Hurts?
I would take the offense, not the defense.
No, maybe not. I'm not saying. I'm not trying to compare apples to oranges. I'm saying, like, in general, would you go, we're going to be a bad team if we do that, or do you think that you guys figure something out? So I think that's all telling right there, because if we have the 49ers right now,
I don't think we'd be as bad as you guys right now if we have the thing too.
And I think that if we took you guys over, I think that we still continue to struggle to score points. So that's 100% a coaching issue. Nick Sirianni,
you guys are winning in spite of Nick Sirianni, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think that Nick Sirianni needs to go. I just hope that when that time comes, honestly, I don't care if we can lose every fucking game. I just think it's time for a change, because we're gonna waste arguably the best offensive Eagles football team of all time. If we don't do something now, this is the best Eagles offense of all time, without a doubt. Anybody saying otherwise is living in the past. Yeah, we had McNabb, we had T.O. for a year, we had, guys like Brian Westbrook and whatever. Give me Saquon all day over Brian Westbrook. I'm sorry, I get it. Philadelphia, we love them. Give me Saquon Barkley. Okay,
it's nostalgia.
Give me A.J. Brown over anybody who's ever suited up as wide receiver in Philadelphia, even T.O., because that was at the end of that was toward the end of T.O.'s career. It wasn't like he was there, but this wasn't T.O. when he was in San Fran. All right, great receiver. Hey, great receiver.
Hall of Fame receiver.
You're right. He was in Philadelphia for a short amount of time. He was in Philadelphia for a short amount of time. No disrespect to T.O. A.J. Brown is the best receiver of all time when it comes to being a Philadelphia Eagle. And he's going to continue to do it every season. We're going to waste these guys' time. They're going to be on another team, in the next 3.5, 4 years, whatever their contract is, like through 2028. Okay. If we don't at least make it back to another Super Bowl, that's an issue. So, yeah, Sirianni can. If he goes, I'll be happy. If he doesn't go, we better start winning games, man.
So, Jaevon, as you conclude your driveway sit-ups there, a la Terrell Owens, what did you think about this Eagles win? Because they barely stuck by the Browns. And so how did you feel about it from your perspective, Jaevon?
I mean, Deshaun Watson was so bad. Like, he was trying to give the Eagles the game. Like, he was doing anything, every which way to make sure the Eagles win this game. They needed a blocked field goal to keep it close, and they also did cover the spread because of that. I thought A.J. Brown was back. I know Kevin has his indifferences about A.J. Brown. I thought he was a huge reason why they won this game. Just take A.J. Brown away from this game, it could have been a field goal game. And it all worked. Damn near was a field goal game. This was Devontae Smith. He balled out. It was good to have both of their receivers back. Saquon did jack shit because he only scored 7 points of fantasy for me, and I lost to Gary by 4 points. If Saquon would have just ran for more yards, we wouldn't be in this mess. But I think the Eagles, like Kaz mentioned, he kind of literally hit the nail on the head. They're winning off of pure talent. A.J. Brown is a top 5 receiver in the league. Saquon Barkley is like a top 3 running back in the league. Jalen Hurts is a top whatever quarterback. You can kind of, I don't know where he would be in there. He likes to throw picks. I don't like their defense at all, but Deshaun Watson is god-awful. Kaz mentioned their schedule isn't the hardest. There's really a bright side to this, Kaz, because you look at your schedule and you look at the division, how the Cowboys look like shit, the Giants are the Giants, the Commanders, as I predicted, are better than
Real
most.
deal.
I feel like they're gonna have to worry about the Commanders because the Commanders are obviously the best in the division currently right now. But the division isn't like world beaters. I think one playoff team gets out of this division because I'm looking at the NFC North. The Packers, the Lions, the Bears, and the Vikings all have 4 or more wins. So you're looking at that division like, okay, how many teams are getting from there? And then you're looking at all the other division leaders, and it's like that division could probably have 3 to 4 playoff teams, and that's shrinking the window for other teams to have multiple playoff teams in their division. So I think whoever wins this division is going to make the playoffs. So that means that every game matters. Those head-to-heads in the division matter. Those tiebreaker games that you play that your other opponent has in your division matter. Like, all those games are going to come down to, okay, we beat them, but we lost to that team that beat them. So that's going to be the other tiebreaker. So Kaz gets what I'm saying. But, I mean, it's going to come down to the nitty-gritty. And I feel like there's going to be games where talent is not going to be enough to win those games. You're going to need coaching to prevail you in a couple of wins, 2-3 games max maybe. Because obviously players win the game. But you're going to need some coaching execution to help you put yourself over the top to win those games. Put your players in position to win those games. To go for it on 4th down, or to make that call to tell the guys like, hey, we need to do this, to make those halftime adjustments, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I feel like Nick Sirianni is a bottom tier coach right now. Like the Browns are a team that I feel like most people can say they're one of the worst teams in the league currently right now. And it's not even just with the Browns. I mean, these are other games that you're looking at like, hey, the Bucs game, I get you didn't have all your players, but you shouldn't be getting blown out by the Bucs. I mean, it kind of comes down to you're going to have better players in most of the games that you play in. You need to come out on top of the majority of these games. And I get it. They have a really talented roster, but it's going to come down to, okay, we have better players. Can we execute and win these games to get that number one spot in the NFC East? Because right now, they're not in first place. The Commanders are. And I don't know when the next time they play the Commanders, I'm pretty sure it's sometime soon. They need to win those games. Cowboys don't look like they're going anywhere. Like I said, the Giants are the Giants. It's really going to come down to the Cowboys and the Commanders, or the Eagles and the Commanders for that division.
So the Eagles scored 34 points in week 1. They have averaged just over 17 points combined in their last 4 games. Or not 17 points combined over. You guys get the point. They've averaged 17 points over the last 4 games after scoring twice that in week 1. And so that's interesting. And also, Kaz, I don't know if you caught this. You likely did because you're locked in on everything Eagles. But Nick Sirianni brought his kid to his post-game press conference right after he is going after Eagles fans in the stands. And he's under fire because of all the reasons that we've already talked about. I mean, and he shaved his head. Nick Sirianni just looks like he's going through it. And he used his kid as a shield to not have to deal with the Philadelphia media.
Not a shield.
That's a reach. He's known for bringing his kids on after.
Okay.
Yeah.
I apologize then. Shout out to Ben Violin for getting that wrong then, because I just basically retweeted.
Nah, I'm not saying it's wrong because it might have just so happened. Okay, you know, let's bring the kids out, especially today for sure. But
right.
No, he's done it in the past. He's brought his kids out plenty. I've seen his kids plenty of times. Like, yep, he does.
So even after the good wins.
Yep.
All
see
right.
the kids.
Good to know.
Hear him giggling and laughing and whatnot. So yeah, he's done that. So that's one of those things where take it how you want, but he's done it before. So.
Yeah, that's a fair point. As we continue here on episode 116 of Stats Over Politics, Shaun Holko alongside Kaz Johnson and Jaevon Toddy. Guys, let's wrap things up with our speedy Week 6 NFL recap. So, Jaevon, I'm going to start out with you as your Bears defeated the Jaguars 35-16 in London.
Caleb's a top 15 quarterback. He's back, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what you guys want me to say. His passer rating in week 1 was like 82, and now it's like at 120. I mean, he's getting better every week in and week out. Threw 4 touchdown passes this last game. It could have been 5 if that DeAndre Swift push pass wouldn't have gotten called back. But, I mean, this guy, man, if he's continued to play at this level, this offense can be very scary. Keenan Allen obviously had 2 touchdowns. Cole Kmet obviously had the 2. They have DJ Moore. Then they also have their other first-round pick in Rome Odunze. And when they're firing on all cylinders, it's a very scary team to watch out for. A lot of people are going to say, they're beating up on bad teams. Caleb's a rookie. He's a rookie quarterback. Like, he's doing these – you're expecting him to do this, that, and the third. Like, this is his first year playing football in the NFL.
Well, we are because you've been saying for 2 years that he's a top 15 quarterback in the NFL. So that's why we are. But
so what you're telling me is Toddy does what Cowboys fans do. You're digging himself a hole because you're talking too much about this guy instead of letting him show us early on. You're like, no, this guy's gonna be it. He's this and that, and then it takes a while for him to get the wheels going, and now you're like, been telling you guys this is like. We wasn't never knocking the guy. You just put him on this pedestal before, he even suited up one time.
Hey, man, Caleb balling. He out there hooping. So all I got to say is he's out there. He's doing his Dougie, man. I'm proud of him. He's going to just continue to keep getting better and better every single week as the year goes on. and the Bears are going to climb in to the playoff race.
Kaz, the Texans beat the Patriots 41-21.
What do you want me to say about this game?
That
No.
the Patriots are buns. Hey, Drake May played.
Yeah, he did. He had
touchdown passes.
Yeah, I'm saying, yeah, he had like I think like 250, something like that. Did he hear?
Did all right.
Something like that. Anyways, Texans are better. They're better. I'll tell you this. I tweeted, who's ready for Tank Dell to regain his rightful crown as the best wide receiver in Houston, and that's exactly what happened right away. Tank Dell found the end zone. He had a good chunk of fantasy points, but yeah, I mean, Patriots are just a really bad team. I mean, you got a bottom tier team going against a top tier team, and what do you expect to happen? So, Texans just did what they were supposed to do. That's it, man. Sometimes you don't have to really touch base on a game like that. You just know what it is, and it was expected. And they, unlike my Eagles, executed against a very bad team. So that's what it should look like. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's what it's supposed to look like. And they did it without Nico Collins, the leading receiver in the NFL. You know what I'm saying? They did it without the best receiver right now in the NFL. And you still go out there and go, you know what? This is a bad team. Let's go ahead and just bend them over real quick and get up out of here. That's what they did. Why can't my team do that? I don't know why. But they did it. It was expected.
You took the words right out of my mouth, because that was the only thing I was going to say about it, is that they actually took care of business like the Eagles should have. 243 passing yards for Drake May. So good for him. So for me, the Baltimore Ravens beat the Washington Commanders 30-23. Uncle Manny was saying in our group chat that this is the game that the Commanders can prove if they're the real deal, and they lost by a touchdown on the road. They also proved that they are the real deal. And my biggest takeaway from this is that I absolutely love the connection that has developed between Jaden Daniels and Scary Terry McLaurin, because it took them a couple weeks. They finally got going. OHIO, a.k.a. wide receiver U. I absolutely love it, because Terry finally got himself a motherfucking quarterback. Let's go. Jaevon, I'm hopping on the Commanders bandwagon with you, because I hate the Cowboys, I hate the Eagles, and I'm just proud of Scary Terry for performing when he finally got himself a quarterback. But Commanders are for real. The Ravens proved that they are still one of the AFC's best. So, Jaevon, the Packers, they beat the Cardinals 34-13.
Jordan Love's back. Romeo Doubs is back. He was in the news this past week, because, there's some things, he missed practice or whatever, and this, that, and the third, and he goes out and scores 2 touchdowns. I think the Cardinals are a fun, feisty team. I don't know if they're a good team, although they did beat the 49ers. Sometimes feisty can get you a couple of those wins that you're not supposed to win. Marvin Harrison Jr., I think, went out in this game with a concussion, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
That's tough to see, because that's pretty much what Kyler's been throwing the ball to. But the Packers kind of flexed their muscles a little bit in this game. And down the line, they're going to be one of those teams in the NFC that are going to be competing for, that top NFC spot.
So normally this gets tossed to Toddy just because of his boy Baker Mayfield, but Kaz, the Buccaneers beat the Saints 51-27.
Here's what I was saying: if you're gonna throw, I think you had 3 interceptions.
Baker,
I think so.
Yeah, 3. Can you guys stat check me on that real quick? Regardless, if you're gonna throw 3 interceptions, you do it in 51-point fashion. You understand that? You see what I'm saying? That's what you do. So that all the interceptions that you throw, when it comes to that, you put up 51. Perspective. I'm gonna ask you guys this: Brock Purdy puts up 51 points in a game, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Are you guys mad?
No, not at all.
No,
I mean, as long as the defense doesn't give up 52 points and they lose.
My point exactly. And they handled business. The Bucs are, as of this year, they're the team that I'm most scared of, because Baker Mayfield absolutely owns Philadelphia. I don't know how, I don't know why, but he just does. And I hope I never see them ever. Ever. I'm serious. If you guys think I'm joking, if we run into them in the playoffs, I'll put all my money on the Buccaneers to win that game. But no, just the Buccaneers are just continuing to prove that this isn't a fluke. Last season wasn't a fluke when they beat us in the playoffs. The starts of this season, which was really good. I mean, they're playing against good teams and competing, and in some cases winning. Dude, like they're good. So that was a game that was expected. I didn't know it was gonna be that bad, but like I like the Buccaneers fire, man. Like Baker Mayfield is he's a footballer. Like I'm not sure if you guys know what that means. He's perspective. Johnny Manziel at Texas A&M. That's what Baker Mayfield is in the NFL. There's only a couple quarterbacks like that, and he's one of them. He's might be the best at that. So as long as that guy's out there having fun and moving the sticks, and his team's rallying behind him, the Buccaneers are going to continue to be a really good team. So they put up 51, and Baker had when you look at the stat chart, you see the 3 interceptions, but then you see the numbers. It's like, don't great quarterbacks do that? Aaron Rodgers has done it. Peyton Manning's done it. Tom Brady's done it. Put up a lot of points. Throw a few picks. You still win the game. So Buccaneers are continuing to prove that they're one of the – dude, the NFC is loaded, bro. Like, the NFC is, like, loaded this year.
Finally. Last year was not at all.
No. And you know what's crazy is we're still trying to figure out who the hell the Niners are and the Eagles are, and maybe the Cowboys make a surge like they – we don't even know about even those 3 teams alone, right? And look at the rest. Look at the rest. NFC North, the Buccaneers, hell, the Falcons. I mean, NFC's loaded, man, and the Bucs are probably a top 4 team, top 5 team.
So the Colts, they beat the Tennessee Titans 20-17. Joe Flacco continues to prove that he is a serviceable NFL quarterback. Good for him, because I thought his career was over. I spent most of his career hating Joe Flacco just because of him defeating the 49ers in the Super Bowl. But, I mean, I'm kind of lightweight becoming a Joe Flacco fan just because he is just continuing to prove himself time and time again. This is still Anthony Richardson's team, but Flacco is one of the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL, even at his age. So good for him. By the way, get Calvin Ridley the fucking ball, because he is going insane. I saw an interview with him after the game where the reporters were saying, like, what could you do better? Blah, 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 blah. There was an interception that was thrown that way, and he was like, yeah, I could have played better defense. A wide receiver is saying, I could have played better defense. I could have gone and tackled him. And then the reporter was asking him, is there something you could do better with your targets, because you finished with 0 catches for 0 yards? And he said, yeah, when did I get those targets? Oh, all in the 4th quarter? I need the fucking ball earlier so I can get in the game. That's a direct quote from Calvin Ridley. Get him the ball, please. Fucking Mayo Man in the coffee. Come on, Will Levis. Get him the fucking ball. Jaevon, the Chargers beat the Broncos 23-16.
Broncos or the Chargers flexed their muscles pretty early. I saw Jim Harbaugh leave the game early, for a medical thing, but he ended up coming back, which is pretty cool. Glad to see that he's okay. But the Broncos kind of made a late push at the end, but it was pretty much too little, too late for them, as the Chargers kind of, iced the game at the end. But Chargers are like one of those teams that a lot of people aren't really talking about. I did pick them to go to the playoffs, but I think they'll be in the mix to definitely make the playoffs. Kind of thinking the AFC is in a down year, if you're looking at it from a perspective of, we thought that that NFC North, that the NFC North would be a gauntlet. There'd be a bunch of teams come out of there. You obviously have the Chiefs, the reemergence, I guess, of the Jets, and obviously having the Bills in that division. But the Chargers are going to be one of those teams that they're going to be in a lot of close games, and I think they're going to win a bunch of games. So watch out for the Chargers.
Yeah, I'm glad that Jim Harbaugh was able to get back on the sideline. It seemed like he was dealing with something with his heart, which is no joke, and he dealt with that late in his 49ers tenure. So I just hope he's okay. And so, Kaz, I'm going to take this next game because I have to hear you talk about the one afterwards. The Steelers beat the Raiders 32-13. Shout out to our guy, Gary, former co-host here on Stats Over Politics. He was there in Vegas for the game with brother Jesse, and they were able to watch the Steelers absolutely dog walk the Raiders. I mean, I don't know really what to think of the Raiders. If you're going from Gardner Minshew to Aiden O'Connell, you're not getting better. And I think Antonio Pierce is a good coach just because he's simply a good leader of men. It kind of stops there. Max Crosby got the Raiders tatted on him. It might be best for him to get traded. And I saw Kevin shared a proposed trade today about him potentially going back to Michigan and playing for the Lions, which he would fill in for Aiden Hutchison, who broke his leg in the win against the Cowboys. And next year, the two of them playing with each other would be absolutely ridiculous. But Kaz, that leads us into the next game because the Lions on Jerry Jones' birthday won in Dallas 47-9.
That lessened the blow a little bit for my Eagles win. That was so embarrassing because holy shit, man. I took the Cowboys to win this week. I was like, okay, are they going to drop 3 at home? They lose to the Saints at home, get their ass beat for the Saints. Then the Ravens handle business at home. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Cowboys don't lose at home. This isn't what they do. They haven't lost at home for like 2 years. Okay, something's got to give. This will be the game where the Dallas Cowboys will win, and all the fans will show up, flexing their muscles. Yeah, well, we them boys, Yeah, I was like, it's gonna be the game. It's gonna be annoying. We're gonna lose to the Browns, and they're gonna win, and it's just gonna be hell. Well, it didn't happen, and it didn't happen because Dak Prescott cannot beat contenders. He is who he is, and I say Dak Prescott because, like I was talking about Geno Smith earlier. No, that motherfucker lost. That him. It was him. I can point the finger at Dak. It was him. Okay? I can't say the same thing about guys like Geno Smith. But that shit there, Dak looked terrible. It was awesome to witness. I loved it. I was calling my Cowboys fans. I didn't even call them. I FaceTimed them. I had to see the face. So a couple of my homies got FaceTimed, and I'm like, talk to me. They said some things I can't say on here because you might get banned. But just know the best part about that ass whooping from the Lions was the picture of Jerry Jones' face where it scores 47-9, and he's just sitting there. It says his 82nd birthday.
Oh my God!
I'm like, that man, for the sake of the rest of his life, needs to just go ahead and just hang it up. And go and enjoy the private island you probably own, brother. Because holy shit, that was bad. That was bad. And you did it in Jerry World. And Cowboys fans, if you guys don't know this, okay, I've been to a couple Cowboys games, Eagles Cowboys games or whatever, and I have a lot of Cowboys fans because they're fucking everywhere. They do not do well when they lose at home. They are in. I'm talking like the whole AT&T Stadium is like a big ball depression. I almost feel bad. I'm like, damn, you guys are really sad walking out wearing your goddamn blue jean shorts, wearing your blue jean shorts and your dusted ass Jordans and your Tony Romo jersey and Jason Witten jerseys and your cowboy hats looking like idiots. To witness that was awesome. Happy birthday, Jerry. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to Jera. Jaevon, Kirko, Chains, Cousins, and the Falcons beat the Panthers 38-20.
The Falcons almost rushed for 200 yards in this game. Algier had 100 yards, and I think Bijan almost had 100. He had like 98 yards. I feel like that was the difference. Kyle Pitts was out there making plays, which is good. Darnell Mooney is a guy that I think was a really underrated signing because he was really good for the Bears with Justin Fields, but kind of got swept under the rug because Justin Fields was quarterback. But I think the Falcons I think they're going to win that division, the NFC South. They had the head-to-head with the Bucs, and the Bucs was the team who I kind of was thinking would give them fits, and they did in the game that they played on Thursday night last week. But this was a game that the Falcons kind of had to, win pretty handedly. They're favored by 6, ended up covering. I did see a tweet, Orlovsky. He was saying, what the hell are the Panthers doing? Why is Bryce Young playing? They're 1-5. The season's over. These are the games that he needs to develop in. I get it. Panthers are ass. And these are the games that Bryce Young has to get some experience in. And Andy Dalton is a however many year vet. And he's kind of stunning the growth of Bryce Young. And Bryce Young's not playing. He's just holding the clipboard, and they're still losing. So it's like, what are we doing here? Let's get the kid out there and let's let him play. So see it from both sides. What does Bryce Young become a potential trade piece? We've said that on previous podcasts before, or is he going to stay in Carolina? Not sure where. David Tepper and that organization, what direction are they going in? Couldn't tell you, but the Falcons do win this game pretty handily.
Kaz, finally, to wrap us up, your opponent coming up, and I say your being the Eagles, obviously. The Giants lost to the Bengals at home on Sunday Night Football, 17-7. So the Bengals finally get the win. I mean, I just have to say real quickly before we get your thoughts on this game is that we were talking earlier about a must-win game for the 49ers in Week 6. This was must-win for the Bengals.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think the Bengals make the playoffs. I think what was that stat that they were talking about? No team like in the last bazillion years that started off 0-3 like made the playoffs or something like that. I don't think that they're going to be the team that's going to break that cycle. I mean, they're going to need to go on a massive win streak, and from the looks of it, Joe Burrow's playing phenomenal this season. It's just not enough. There's just too many really good teams like the Ravens that's in their division. Pittsburgh right now in their division alone, let alone, you know what I'm saying, other teams like the Chiefs are going to be there and guys like that. So, yeah, a must win for hope. But like I've mentioned before, the Giants are a solid team when they have their best player, Malik Neighbors, suited up. Was he suited up? Nope. And that's all that's it. That's it. So no Malik Neighbors, no Giants win. And that's going to be the case anytime that he's out of the game. So you need Malik Neighbors to win. If you're a New York Giant, you're not going to win games without him. And the Bengals, again, it's just, again, talent-wise, like I mentioned about the Eagles earlier, it's like they just have more talent. You don't need to have a crazy scheme written up to beat a team like the Giants. Just outman them, bone on bone. Who's better? The Bengals are better. It's just that simple. So, Joe Burrow looking like an idiot, making stupid faces again, acting like somebody he's not. I'm not sure if you guys saw that clip is awkward. It's like I'm like, okay, I like you, Joe Burrow, but like you look at you're kind of looking a little suspect right now, brother. But
that was funny.
it was really awkward. I'm like, I can't watch this more than 2 times, but I keep watching it. It's like a bad car accident. I'm like, stop. I'm like, just stop making a face. What is that? Like that? Stop. Okay, I get it, but yeah, the Bengals, they're just more talent on that team. And like you said, Shaun, it was a must-win for hope, and they got it. So good job. You beat the Malik Neighbors-less New York Giants.
And not to contradict your point, this is really just to add on in terms of bagging on the Seahawks. But the Seahawks, oh, wow, light finally just came on. Wow. Anyways, the Seahawks, they lost to a Malik Neighbors-less Giants team, which makes that loss just not make sense even more. And that's why, despite their 2 or 3 losses in this streak being against some of the NFC's elite, I will continue to say, and maybe this is just me being a 49ers fan and a hater, the Seahawks are frauds. Geno Smith may not be the problem, but the Seahawks are frauds. Anyways, that's going to do it for episode number 116 of Stats Over Politics. Make sure to give us a like on YouTube. Helps us a lot. And if you enjoy the podcast, hit subscribe to get notifications when we go live. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Stats Over Politics and on X at Stats Over Politics. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review on all podcast platforms. And if you're enjoying the show, give us those 5 stars. We'd really appreciate it. As you guys have been tuned into episode number 116 of Stats Over Politics. For my guys, Jaevon, Toddy, Kaz Johnson, and Kevin Dent, I'm your host, Shaun Holko. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next Monday on another episode of Stats Over Politics. Peace.